In 2003, while working on an offshore research platform in the Pacific Ocean, I recovered the body of a Bigfoot floating in open water, miles from any land. What I discovered during the examination of that creature challenged everything I thought I knew about biology, evolution, and the natural world. This is the story I've been afraid to tell, but at my age, I've decided some secrets are too important to take to the grave. October 7th, 2003. I was 54 years old, working as a senior marine biologist for the Pacific Marine Research Institute, stationed on Platform Charlie, a research and observation platform located 37 miles off the coast of Washington state. The platform served as a base for studying deep-sea ecosystems, monitoring whale migrations, and collecting oceanographic data. My name is Dr. Malcolm Sterling, and I'd spent 30 years studying marine life, publishing papers on everything from jellyfish bioluminescence to whale communication patterns. I'd seen remarkable things in my career: giant squids, rare deep-sea fish, underwater volcanic activity, but nothing had prepared me for what I was about to encounter. The platform housed a crew of 12, 6 scientists, 4 support staff, and 2 Coast Guard liaisons. It was a 150-foot structure anchored to the ocean floor with laboratories, living quarters, equipment storage, and a helipad for emergencies. We typically worked 3-week rotations, then returned to shore for a week before heading back out. That October morning started like any other. I was up at 6 a.m. checking the weather station data over coffee in the main lab. The forecast wasn't great. A storm system was moving in from the northwest, expected to hit us by late afternoon. We'd weathered plenty of storms on Platform Charlie, but this one looked like it might be rough. "Malcolm, you seeing these wave heights?" called out Dr. Jennifer Park, our oceanographer. She was looking at the real-time data on her computer monitor. "We're going to be at 15-foot swells by 3 p.m., possibly 20 feet by evening. We should secure everything and batten down," I said. "Let's get the external equipment stowed and make sure the backup generators are ready." By noon, the sea was already churning. The sky had turned dark gray and the wind was picking up steadily. We'd brought in our floating sensors and secured the boats to the platform with extra lines. Everyone was in storm preparation mode. At 1:30 p.m., I was in the equipment storage bay with Tony Rodriguez, one of our deckhands, when we heard it over the radio. "Platform Charlie, this is Coast Guard Station Cape Disappointment. We're receiving reports of debris in the water approximately 2 miles north-northeast of your position. Can you verify? Over." Jake Morrison, our senior Coast Guard liaison, responded from the communications room. "Station Cape Disappointment will check it out. Visibility is getting poor with the incoming weather. What kind of debris are we looking for? Over. Unknown. Fishing vessel reported seeing something large floating. Thought it might be a whale carcass or shipwreck debris. They couldn't investigate due to the weather conditions. Over." "Copy that. We'll take a look. Over." 20 minutes later, Tony and I were on the platform's upper deck with binoculars, scanning the increasingly rough water to the north. The wind was gusting hard now, and spray from the waves was reaching the platform deck 40 feet above the water. "There," Tony shouted, pointing. 2 o'clock, maybe half a mile out. I trained my binoculars in that direction and saw it, something large and dark floating in the water, rising and falling with the swells. It was too big to be a seal, wrong shape for a whale. "Get Jake up here," I said to Tony, "and tell him we might need to deploy the rescue boat." Within 10 minutes, we had a team assembled. Jake, Tony, our other Coast Guard liaison, Marcus Chen, and myself. The storm was coming in fast, and we had maybe an hour before conditions would be too dangerous for any kind of water operation. "Whatever that is, we need to retrieve it now or wait until after the storm passes," Jake said, studying the object through binoculars. "But if it's a body, human or animal, it might not still be here after the storm." "Let's go," I decided. "But we do this fast and safe. First sign it's too dangerous, we abort." We launched the platform's rigid hull inflatable boat, a 26-foot vessel with twin outboards that was designed for exactly this kind of operation. The waves were already pushing 6 feet, and the boat slammed through them as we approached the floating object. As we got closer, I could see it more clearly through the spray and rain that had started falling. It was definitely biological. I could see hair or fur, dark brown or black, matted and waterlogged. My first thought was bear, maybe a grizzly that had somehow ended up in the ocean. Dead bear? Marcus called out over the engine noise. Maybe. Let's get alongside and secure it. Tony maneuvered the boat carefully, approaching from downwind. As we pulled up next to the body, I got my first clear look at it, and my breath caught in my throat. It wasn't a bear. The body was massive, floating face down in the water. I could see arms, long, powerful arms that ended in hands, not paws. The hair covering it was thick and matted, but the body structure was all wrong for any known animal. It was humanoid, bipedal. "What the hell is that?" Jake said, voicing what we were all thinking. "I don't know," I replied, my scientist's brain trying to catalog what I was seeing, even as my rational mind rejected the impossible. "But we need to get it aboard. Tony, bring us closer. Marcus, help me with the recovery gear." Getting the body into the boat was brutally difficult. It weighed at least 500 pounds, and the rolling waves made everything harder. We used cargo straps and the boat's small winch, working together to roll it over the gunnel. Water sloshed in the bottom of the boat as we finally got it secured. Now that it was aboard, I could see it clearly. 7 feet tall, maybe more. Covered in thick, dark brown hair, except for the palms of its hands and soles of its feet, which were leathery and black. The face was partly submerged in the water, sloshing in the boat bottom, but I could see enough to know this wasn't any animal in the zoological record. "Platform Charlie, this is rescue boat," Jake radioed back. "We've recovered the object. It's biological. Unknown species. We're heading back. ETA, 10 minutes. "Copy that," came the response. "Get back fast. Storm's intensifying." The return trip was rougher, with waves now pushing 8 feet and building. The boat crashed through the swells, spray drenching us all, while the body slid around in the bottom despite being strapped down. By the time we reached the platform and got everything hoisted up, we were exhausted and soaked. Jennifer and the others were waiting on the deck, having prepared one of the storage bays for whatever we'd recovered. When they saw what we carried in on a stretcher, the looks on their faces mirrored what I'd felt: shock, disbelief, and scientific fascination. "Malcolm, what is that?" Jennifer asked, her voice barely audible over the wind. "I don't know, but we need to get it into the lab bay immediately. And, Jennifer, document everything. Photographs, measurements, everything. Because I don't think anyone is going to believe this." We moved the body into the largest storage bay, which we'd converted into a makeshift examination area. I'd done necropsies on whales, sharks, and countless other marine animals, but this was different. This was something that shouldn't exist. As the storm battered the platform outside, I stood over the body, taking in every detail. The hands alone were remarkable, 5 fingers with what looked like fingernails rather than claws. The feet were massive, easily 18 inches long, with a distinct heel and toes. The face, now that I could see it clearly, was deeply unsettling, almost human, but not quite. Heavy brow ridge, broad nose, a mouth that seemed capable of complex expressions. "Someone get Dr. Phillips," I said. Dr. Raymond Phillips was our team's physician, the closest thing we had to a medical doctor. "I want a second pair of eyes on this before we proceed." When Ray arrived and saw what we'd recovered, he went pale. "Malcolm, that's impossible. That can't be real." "It's real. I pulled it out of the ocean myself. Now help me figure out what it is." Over the next hour, as the storm raged outside and the platform rocked with increasingly violent swells, we conducted a preliminary examination. We took measurements, photographs, samples of the hair and skin. Ray checked for vital signs. There were none. The body was cold, completely lifeless, probably had been for some time before we found it. Rigor mortis has passed, Ray observed. Body temperature matches the ocean water. I'd estimate it's been dead at least 24 hours, maybe longer. But what killed it? Jennifer asked. And how did it end up in the middle of the ocean? Those were good questions. There were no obvious wounds, no signs of trauma. The body appeared intact, well preserved by the cold ocean water. We need to do a full necropsy, I said, but not tonight. We're running on adrenaline and shock. Let me document everything properly, get some rest, and we'll start fresh in the morning. But I knew I wouldn't sleep. As I sat in my quarters later that night, listening to the storm hammer the platform, I kept thinking about what we'd found. A Bigfoot, or something very much like what people claimed Bigfoot was, floating dead in the Pacific Ocean 37 miles from land. How did it get there? Where did it come from? And most disturbing of all, what would we discover when we opened it up? I had no idea that the answer to that last question would be far more shocking than the discovery itself. The storm passed by morning, leaving behind calm seas and clear skies that felt almost surreal after the violence of the night before. I'd slept maybe 2 hours, my mind racing with questions about what lay in our makeshift morgue. At 7 a.m. on October 8th, I assembled the team in the storage bay. Present were Dr. Raymond Phillips, Dr. Jennifer Park, Tony Rodriguez, who had field medic training, and Jake Morrison, representing the Coast Guard's interest. I had also called Dr. Lisa Chen, our biochemist, to assist with tissue analysis. Before we begin, I said, I want to be clear about documentation protocols. Everything we do gets photographed, recorded, and logged. Jennifer, you're our official documentarian. Lisa, I'll need tissue samples preserved properly for DNA analysis. Ray, you're my second pair of hands on the actual examination. The body lay on a large stainless steel table we'd repurposed from the equipment bay. In the harsh fluorescent lighting, it looked even more impossible than it had the day before. I'd examined thousands of specimens in my career, but I'd never felt this combination of scientific excitement and deep unease. Let's start with external examination, I said, pulling on latex gloves. Ray, call out observations as I point them out. We worked methodically, documenting every detail. The body was male, approximately 7 feet 2 inches tall when we measured it properly. Weight estimated at 520 pounds. The hair covering most of the body was dense, about 2 to 3 inches long, dark brown with some gray around the face and shoulders, suggesting advanced age. The hands are remarkable, Ray noted as I examined them closely. 5 digits, opposable thumbs, fingernails not claws. The palm prints show dermal ridges, essentially fingerprints, but much larger scale. This is clearly primate anatomy, but massively robust. Boy, look at the muscle attachment points, I said, indicating the shoulders and arms. The bone density here is incredible. This creature would have been extraordinarily strong, probably 3 to 4 times stronger than an adult human male. The feet were equally fascinating, 18 inches long, broad, with a distinct arch and separated toes. Built for bipedal locomotion, I observed. The wear patterns on the soles suggest this creature walked upright exclusively. See these calluses? Deep forest terrain, rough ground, probably mountainous. This was a terrestrial animal, not aquatic in any way. The face was the most unsettling feature. Heavy brow ridge, broad flat nose, prominent jaw. The dental structure showed large molars adapted for grinding plant matter with pronounced canines. Omnivorous, I noted. Similar tooth pattern to gorillas, but with some differences suggesting dietary flexibility. No visible external trauma, Ray said as we continued our examination. No bullet wounds, broken bones, or signs of predation. Whatever killed this creature, it wasn't violent. Wait, Jennifer said, leaning closer with her camera. Malcolm, look at the mouth. There's debris inside. I carefully opened the jaw and found plant material wedged between the molars. Pieces of bark, pine needles, and what looked like berry remnants. Recent feeding, I noted. This creature was alive and eating within probably 12 to 24 hours before ending up in the water. We collected samples of everything we found: hair, skin, the plant material, dirt embedded under the fingernails. All terrestrial. Every piece of evidence pointed to a creature that had spent its entire life on land in forest environments. "The lungs," Ray said. "We need to check the lungs. That'll tell us cause of death." I nodded and proceeded with the internal examination. Making the Y incision felt wrong on a visceral level. The body was so human-like in structure that it felt like I was performing an autopsy on a person rather than an animal. But science required answers. When I opened the chest cavity, the findings were immediate and clear. "Lungs are full of seawater," Ray confirmed, examining the tissue. "Classic drowning. The aspiration patterns suggest the creature was alive when it entered the water and died from respiratory failure. Time of death based on body temperature and rigor patterns, probably 36 to 48 hours ago." So, around October 6th, Jennifer calculated, 2 days before we found it. I continued the examination, documenting the internal organs. Everything was proportionally enlarged but recognizable: heart, liver, kidneys, digestive system. This was a mammal, no question, but the anatomy was closer to human than to any great ape I'd studied. Then I examined the stomach contents, and that's when the story started to come together. Inside the stomach were partially digested berries, what appeared to be small rodent remains, some plant roots, and then something that didn't belong: plastic fragments. Lots of them. "Oh no," I said, carefully extracting the pieces. Black plastic bag material, pieces of rope, plastic bottle caps, even aluminum foil. It ate human garbage. "That explains why it was near coastal areas," Jake observed. "Probably came down from the mountains looking for easy food sources." I continued sorting through the stomach contents and found something else: a crumpled, partially dissolved piece of paper. When I carefully unfolded it, we could make out enough to read. It was a receipt from a Safeway grocery store in Forks, Washington, dated October 4th, 2003. 3 days ago, Ray said. "It was in Forks 3 days ago, going through someone's garbage." Tony pulled up a map on his laptop. "Forks is about 40 miles south of here, right on the coast. Heavy logging area, borders the Olympic National Forest." "October 4th and 5th, Jennifer said, checking her notes. "That's when the major storm system hit the coast. Remember? We were tracking it because we thought it might reach us." Ray pulled up archived weather data. "Storm made landfall near Forks on October 5th. Sustained winds of 65 miles per hour, gusts up to 80. Storm surge of 8 to 12 feet along the coast. Heavy rain, massive waves." The picture became clear. This creature had come down from the Olympic National Forest, probably driven by hunger or curiosity, and had been scavenging garbage near Forks. When the storm hit on October 5th, it must have been near the coastline, maybe on a beach, maybe on cliffs above the water. The storm surge, combined with the massive waves, had caught it and pulled it into the ocean. A terrestrial creature, built for forests and mountains, gets swept into the Pacific during a storm, I said. It probably tried to stay afloat, maybe even tried to swim back to shore, but the currents were too strong. It drowned, and its body drifted north with the prevailing current until we found it yesterday. It was a tragic but entirely plausible explanation. This magnificent creature had died because it ventured too close to human habitation during the worst possible weather conditions. But as I continued the necropsy, I found something that raised far more disturbing questions. While examining the skull, which showed a brain case substantially larger than a gorilla's, suggesting high intelligence, I noticed old, healed fractures in several places. This creature had survived significant trauma in its past. The bones had healed, but the damage was evident. Then, embedded in the left temporal bone, I found something that made my blood run cold: a bullet fragment. I carefully extracted it with forceps and held it under the light. It was old, heavily corroded, but unmistakably man-made. Based on the size and rifling marks, I guessed it was from a .30-06 rifle, a common hunting caliber. "Someone shot this creature," I said quietly. "Years ago, maybe 10, maybe 20 years, based on the bone healing pattern. The bullet lodged in the skull but didn't penetrate the brain. It survived, but someone hunted it," Jennifer finished. "Someone tried to kill it." The room fell silent. We all understood the implications. This wasn't just about discovering an unknown species. Humans had encountered these creatures before, had hunted them, had shot at them. "How many others have been killed?" Lisa asked quietly. "How many of these creatures are out there, being shot at by hunters who think they're just getting a trophy? Or worse, being shot at by people who are terrified of what they're seeing?" I examined the bullet fragment more closely. This looks like it came from a high-powered hunting rifle. Whoever shot this creature was either hunting intentionally or fired in self-defense. But the creature survived and lived for years afterward, with this lodged in its skull. "The question is," Jake said, "do we report this? Because if we do, if we tell the world we found a Bigfoot body, what happens? Every hunter in the Pacific Northwest will be out there trying to bag one. It'll be a bloodbath." He was right. And as I stood there, looking at the body of this creature that had died so unnecessarily, I realized we had a terrible decision to make. Do we reveal what we found and risk triggering a hunting frenzy that could drive these creatures to extinction? Or do we keep it secret and let the species continue living in hiding, unknown and unprotected? "We need to finish this examination first," I said finally. "Collect all the data, all the samples. Then we decide what to do with it. But right now, we have the most important biological specimen anyone has examined in a century. Let's make sure we do this right." Over the next several hours, we completed the full necropsy. We documented everything, collected tissue samples, took hundreds of photographs. The data we gathered was extraordinary, proof that a large, intelligent primate species existed in North America, had adapted to forest environments, and had been surviving undetected for who knows how long. But the bullet fragment weighed on my mind. This creature hadn't just been hiding from humans, it had been hunted by them. And somewhere out there, others of its kind were still hiding, still trying to survive, still being shot at by people who didn't understand what they were seeing. That realization would haunt me for the next 22 years. By October 9th, we had completed the full necropsy and collected every sample we could possibly need. The body was preserved in our cold storage unit, maintained at near freezing temperatures. We had tissue samples in preservative solutions, hair samples, dental molds, hundreds of photographs, detailed measurements, and most importantly, the bullet fragment. That morning I called a meeting in the main conference room. Everyone who knew about the discovery was there. Ray, Jennifer, Lisa, Jake, Marcus, Tony, and 3 other platform staff who'd helped with the recovery and been sworn to secrecy. 8 people total who knew we had a Bigfoot body in our facility. "We need to decide what we do next," I started, standing at the head of the table. "We have 3 options. 1, we report this to the authorities immediately, Coast Guard, Forest Service, maybe even the Smithsonian. 2, we keep it completely secret and dispose of the body. 3, we document everything privately and selectively share the information with trusted scientists who can help us understand what we've found." "There's no question we should report it," Jennifer said immediately. "Malcolm, this is the discovery of the century. This proves Bigfoot exists. The scientific community deserves to know." "And what happens then?" Jake countered. "I'll tell you what happens. Within 24 hours, this platform will be swarming with federal agents, military personnel, media helicopters. They'll seize the body, classify everything, and we'll never see it again. And the real Bigfoot, the living ones out there, they'll become targets." "Jake's right," I said. "The moment this goes public, every hunter in the Pacific Northwest will be heading into the forests. Some will want trophies, some will want proof, some will just be scared and will shoot first. We could trigger the extinction of an entire species." "But they're already being hunted," Lisa pointed out. gesturing at her notes about the bullet fragment. Someone shot this creature decades ago. Someone tried to kill it. If hunters already know about them, why are we protecting information that could lead to their legal protection? Because there's a difference between occasional encounters and systematic hunting, I replied. Right now, these creatures are folklore. Most people don't believe they exist. If we prove they're real, it changes everything. Ray had been quiet, but now he spoke up. Malcolm, I understand the concern about hunting, but consider this. If we don't report this, if we keep it secret, these creatures have no legal protection at all. They're not recognized as existing, so there are no laws protecting them. Someone could kill a dozen of them and face no consequences because officially they don't exist. He had a point. It was a terrible catch-22. Reveal them and risk hunting pressure. Keep them secret and they have no legal protection. There's another consideration, Marcus added. The Coast Guard is going to want an official report about what we recovered. I can stall for a few days, maybe a week, but eventually I'll have to submit paperwork. We can't hide this forever. What if we compromise, Jennifer suggested. What if we report it but do so strategically? Contact specific scientists first, primatologists, anthropologists, conservation biologists. Build a coalition of experts who can advocate for protection before the information becomes public. That could work, Lisa said thoughtfully. If we approach people we trust, give them the data and let them help craft the announcement, we might be able to control the narrative better, emphasize conservation, not sensation. I thought about it. It made sense, but there was still risk. Once the information was out there, we couldn't control how it would be used or interpreted. There's something else we need to consider, I said, and pulled out the photographs of the bullet fragment. Someone shot this creature years ago and it survived. That means somewhere there's a person, maybe a hunter, maybe a hiker, who fired in self-defense, who knows these creatures exist. They didn't report it publicly, which means they either didn't want the attention or were specifically trying to keep it quiet. Or they were hunting illegally and didn't want to get caught, Tony suggested. Either way, I continued, if there are people out there who've had encounters and kept quiet, maybe we should try to find them, talk to them, understand what they know before we make this public. Jake leaned forward. Malcolm, I grew up in logging country. My father was a timber worker in Oregon. There are stories. Locals talk about creatures in the deep woods, things they've seen but won't report because they don't want to be called crazy. If you want to understand what's really going on, you need to talk to the people who live and work in those forests. That could take months, Jennifer protested. Meanwhile, we have a body decomposing in cold storage. We need to act relatively quickly if we want to preserve the specimen properly. She was right. Even with refrigeration, the body wouldn't last indefinitely. We had maybe a few weeks before decomposition would make further study difficult. All right, I said, making a decision. Here's what we're going to do. We split into teams. Jennifer and Lisa, you start reaching out quietly to scientists we trust, primatologists, DNA specialists, anthropologists. Feel them out. See who might be receptive to confidential information. Don't reveal what we have yet. Just gauge interest in theoretical Bigfoot research. Jake and I will make some calls to people in timber country, Marcus offered. See if we can find witnesses who've had encounters. Get a sense of how common these sightings really are. Ray and I will continue analyzing the samples and documenting everything we can, I said. Tony, I need you to handle the practical matter of preserving the body for as long as possible. We might need to move it soon. Move it where? Tony asked. I don't know yet. But if we're going to keep this under wraps while we figure out the right approach, we can't keep it here indefinitely. The platform has too many people coming and going. We need somewhere more secure. Over the next week, our quiet investigation began to yield disturbing results. Jennifer reached out to Dr. Richard Summers, a primatologist at UC Berkeley she'd studied under. Without revealing what we had, she asked about theoretical biological evidence of unknown North American primates. His response was chilling. Multiple researchers have examined such evidence over the years: hair samples, footprint casts, even tissue samples. The results consistently show an unknown primate, but no one can publish because the specimens can't be verified, and the stigma of Bigfoot research is career-ending. Lisa contacted a geneticist at Johns Hopkins who specialized in primate DNA. The response was similar. Off the record, there are DNA sequences in various databases that don't match any known primate. They're flagged as contaminated or misidentified, but some of us suspect they're real. No one will touch it professionally. The scientific community knew, or at least some scientists suspected. But the evidence had been suppressed, dismissed, or ignored because the professional cost of seriously investigating Bigfoot was too high. Jake and Marcus had even more disturbing news. They'd contacted forest rangers, timber workers, and hunting guides in Oregon and Washington. The responses were remarkably consistent. Yes, they'd seen things, large bipedal creatures in the deep forests. Most had never reported it. Some had shot at them. One guy I talked to, Jake told us, admitted he shot one in 1987, hit it in the shoulder. He said it ran off, and he was so terrified by what he'd seen that he never told anyone. Spent the next 15 years wondering if he'd killed it or if it survived. Did he try to track it? I asked. No, he said he was too scared. Just got the hell out of the forest and never went back to that area. The picture emerging was deeply troubling. These creatures existed. They were being encountered regularly, and people were shooting at them. But a wall of silence, part stigma, part fear, part not wanting to be ridiculed, kept the truth from coming out. On October 15th, exactly 1 week after the necropsy, I received a phone call that changed everything. It was from Dr. Patricia Wells, a wildlife biologist with the U.S. Forest Service. Jennifer had contacted her as part of our outreach to trusted scientists. But instead of a response from Dr. Wells herself, I got a call from someone else entirely. Dr. Sterling, my name is Agent Richard Foster with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Dr. Wells forwarded your colleague's inquiry to my office because we have a specific program that deals with sensitive wildlife matters. I understand you may have information about an unusual primate species in the Pacific Northwest. My stomach dropped. I'm not sure what you're referring to, Agent Foster. Dr. Sterling, please don't insult my intelligence. Dr. Wells has been part of a confidential network we've maintained for years. When researchers encounter certain types of evidence, they're instructed to contact us. Your colleague's inquiry triggered that protocol. Now, I'm not calling to threaten or intimidate you. I'm calling because if you found what I think you found, you need help that only we can provide. What kind of help? Protection. For the specimen, for your research, and for the living population. Dr. Sterling, the federal government has been aware of these creatures for decades. We've been quietly protecting their habitat and managing encounters. If you found a body, that changes things significantly. We need to talk in person as soon as possible. I looked around the room at my team, who were listening to my side of the conversation with growing alarm. And if I say no, I asked, then in about 48 hours, your platform will be visited by federal agents with seizure warrants, and everything you've discovered will be classified and removed from your control. Or you can work with us, maintain involvement in the research, and help us develop actual protection protocols for these creatures. Your choice, Dr. Sterling, but you need to make it quickly. I had 48 hours to decide whether to hand over the most important biological discovery of my career to the federal government or lose it entirely. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my quarters on the platform, staring at the phone, thinking about Agent Foster's ultimatum. 48 hours. Cooperate or lose everything. By morning, I'd made my decision. I called the team together and told them about the conversation. So the government's known all along, Jennifer said, her voice tight with anger. While we've been agonizing over whether to go public, they've been sitting on this information for decades. Maybe, I said, or maybe they've been trying to protect these creatures in the only way they could, by keeping them secret. We don't know their motivations yet. I don't trust them, Lisa said. The moment we hand over that body, we lose all control. They could bury this, classify it, and we'd never know what happened to our research. That's already going to happen if we don't cooperate, Ray pointed out. At least if we work with them, we stay involved. We get answers. We might even be able to help develop real protection protocols. I looked around at my team, dedicated scientists who'd worked alongside me for years, who'd shared this extraordinary discovery, who deserved to be part of whatever came next. Here's what I'm going to do, I said. I'm going to meet with Agent Foster. I'm going to hear what they have to say, but I'm not making any commitments until I understand what we're really dealing with. Jake, Marcus, I want you there as Coast Guard representatives. This isn't just a scientific matter anymore. There are legal and jurisdictional questions. Agreed, Jake said. When and where? I picked up the phone and called the number Agent Foster had given me. Dr. Sterling, he answered on the first ring. I was hoping to hear from you. I'll meet with you, but not on the platform, neutral ground. And I bring representatives. Fair enough. There's a Coast Guard station near Astoria, Oregon. How about tomorrow morning, 9 a.m.? I'll arrange for a helicopter to bring you in from the platform. Who else will be there? Myself and Dr. Ellen McCarthy, who oversees our research program. Just the four of us initially. If you're comfortable after that conversation, we can expand the discussion. 24 hours later, Jake, Marcus, and I were in a small conference room at the Coast Guard station in Astoria. Agent Foster was in his late 40s, professional demeanor with the bearing of someone who'd spent years in law enforcement. Dr. McCarthy was older, probably 60, with kind eyes but a serious expression that suggested she'd seen things that weighed on her. Thank you for coming, Foster started. I know this situation is unusual, and you're taking a risk trusting us. So let me be direct. Yes, the federal government has been aware of these creatures for approximately 50 years. Yes, we've been actively working to protect them while keeping their existence classified. And yes, your discovery of a body represents both a crisis and an opportunity. Why the secrecy? I asked. If you've known for 50 years, why not establish legal protections, designate habitat preserves, create conservation programs? Dr. McCarthy answered, because the moment we acknowledge they exist, we lose the ability to protect them. Think about it, Dr. Sterling. If we announce tomorrow that Bigfoot is real, what happens? Every forest in the Pacific Northwest would be flooded with hunters, cryptozoologists, media, tourists. The creatures would be harassed, hunted, captured. Some would be killed for trophies. Others would be taken alive for exhibition or study. The species would go extinct within a decade. So instead, you let them exist in limbo, I said. Unprotected by law, occasionally shot by hunters, dying when they accidentally encounter humans. It's not ideal, Foster admitted, but it's kept the population stable. We currently estimate there are between 150 and 200 individuals scattered across Washington, Oregon, Northern California, and British Columbia. Small, isolated family groups living in the most remote areas. They're intelligent enough to avoid human contact most of the time. The system works as long as people don't believe they're real. Until one drowns and washes up 30 miles offshore, Jake said. Exactly. Your discovery is unprecedented. In 50 years of monitoring, we've never had a body recovered in such a public setting. We've dealt with the occasional death in the forests, usually from old age or injury, but we've always been able to secure the remains quietly. This is different. What do you do with the bodies you find? I asked. Scientific study, then respectful disposal, Dr. McCarthy said. We have a small team of researchers with clearances who've been studying tissue samples, genetic material, behavior observations. We've learned a great deal about these creatures, but all of it is classified. And now, you want our body, I said. We need it, Foster corrected. Dr. Sterling, you have 8 people on that platform who know about this. How long before someone talks? How long before word spreads? We need to secure the specimen and all related data before this becomes public knowledge. And what happens to us? Marcus asked. Do we get silenced, threatened, disappeared? Foster actually smiled slightly. This isn't a spy movie, Lieutenant. We're not the CIA. We're wildlife management dealing with an unusual situation. What we're offering is a partnership. You sign non-disclosure agreements, you maintain your involvement in the research, and you help us understand what this particular specimen can teach us. In exchange, your careers remain intact, and you get to be part of something extraordinary. What about publishing? Jennifer had given me a list of questions to ask. What about sharing this discovery with the scientific community? Eventually, maybe, Dr. McCarthy said, but not now. Not until we've figured out how to manage the public disclosure without causing a disaster. That might take years. I won't lie to you. It might never happen in your lifetime. But the alternative is that your research gets seized, classified, and you never hear about it again. This way, you stay involved. I thought about what she was saying. It was a devil's bargain, trading public recognition for continued involvement. But realistically, what choice did we have? I want to see your research, I said. If I'm going to sign away my rights to publish, I want to know what you've learned. I want to see that you're actually trying to protect these creatures and not just covering up their existence for political reasons. Foster and McCarthy exchanged glances. Then McCarthy nodded. We can arrange that, but understand, Dr. Sterling, once you see what we have, you're committed. You can't unsee it. You can't walk away. The information is classified at the highest levels. I understand. Then we have a deal? I looked at Jake and Marcus. Both nodded slightly. They'd support whatever I decided. One condition, I said. My entire team gets the same access and involvement. They worked on this discovery together. They deserve to be part of what comes next. Agreed, Foster said. We'll need everyone to sign NDAs, undergo background checks, and obtain security clearances. The process will take a few weeks. Meanwhile, we need to transport the specimen to a secure facility. Where? There's a research station in the North Cascades, off any public maps. It's where we conduct our long-term studies. The body will be preserved there, and your team can continue analyzing it under our supervision. Over the next hour, we worked out the details. The body would be transported by military helicopter the following night, under cover of darkness. Our tissue samples and documentation would be packaged and sent separately. The official story would be that we'd recovered an unusual marine mammal that was sent to NOAA for analysis. 3 days later, I was standing in a facility that didn't officially exist, looking at research that had been accumulated over 50 years of studying Bigfoot. Dr. McCarthy walked me through the archives. We have tissue samples from 17 different individuals collected over 5 decades. DNA analysis shows they're a distinct species, most closely related to humans, but divergent enough to be classified separately. Probably a parallel evolutionary branch that adapted to North American forests, while early humans migrated across the Bering Land Bridge. She showed me photographs of living specimens taken with telephoto lenses from observation posts hidden in the forests. Families of creatures living in remote valleys, caring for young, gathering food, creating basic tools from stones and branches. They're intelligent, McCarthy continued, probably comparable to early humans in cognitive ability. They have social structures, appear to communicate through vocalizations and gestures, and show problem-solving skills. But they're also incredibly elusive. They've learned to avoid humans, to hide their tracks, to move through forests without leaving evidence. Except when they're shot at, I said, thinking of the bullet fragment in our specimen's skull. Yes, that's our biggest problem. Despite our best efforts, there are encounters, usually hunters who misidentify them as bears or hikers who stumble across them accidentally. Most of these encounters go unreported because people don't want to be ridiculed. But occasionally, someone shoots first and thinks later. How many have been killed? We don't know for certain. We've documented 8 deaths from gunshot wounds over the past 30 years. But there are probably others we never found. The creatures hide their dead when possible. She led me to another room where skeletal remains were carefully preserved in storage. These are all we've been able to recover. Most died from human causes, gunshot wounds, vehicle strikes, one from poisoning after eating contaminated garbage. Only 2 died from what appeared to be natural causes. I stared at the skeletons. Each one represented a life cut short, a member of a species teetering on the edge of extinction, killed by the species that should have been studying and protecting them. This is why we can't go public, McCarthy said quietly. The moment people know these creatures exist, the killing will accelerate. Right now, most hunters who see one convince themselves they imagined it. But if it's confirmed, they'll be hunting them for sport, for trophies, or just out of fear. So what's the solution, I asked. We keep them secret until they go extinct anyway? No. We're working on a long-term plan, quietly expanding protected wilderness areas where they're known to live, establishing monitoring programs, developing protocols for managing encounters, and yes, eventually we hope to have enough protections in place that we can acknowledge their existence publicly. But that's years away, maybe decades. And in the meantime, you need people like me to help with the research while keeping our mouths shut. Essentially, yes. I thought about the creature we'd pulled from the ocean, cold, dead, alone. It had died because it ventured too close to human civilization, eaten our garbage, gotten caught in our weather patterns, and drowned in waters it was never meant to be in. I'll help, I said, but not just with research. I want to be involved in developing those protection protocols. I want to help create a future where these creatures can live without fear of being shot every time a hunter sees them. Deal, McCarthy said, extending her hand. And that's how I spent the next 2 decades of my career, working in secret, studying a species the world didn't believe existed, trying to protect creatures that most people thought were myths. 22 years. That's how long I kept the secret. From 2003 to 2025, I worked within the classified program, studying a species the world didn't know existed, watching as the population slowly declined despite our best efforts. I'm 76 years old now, living in a small house in Cannon Beach, Oregon, close enough to the ocean that I can hear the waves at night. I retired from the program 3 years ago in 2022, when my health started declining and I could no longer make the trips to the research stations. But retirement didn't free me from the burden of what I knew. The years I spent in the program were simultaneously the most fulfilling and frustrating of my career. Our team, myself, Ray, Jennifer, Lisa, and eventually others who were brought into the classified project, made remarkable discoveries about these creatures. We documented their behavior, their social structures, their intelligence. We proved beyond any doubt that they were a distinct species, most closely related to humans but adapted for life in dense forests. We learned they had complex family bonds, that they cared for their injured and elderly, that they mourned their dead. We documented tool use, simple implements made from stones and branches, but clear evidence of problem-solving intelligence. We recorded vocalizations that suggested a primitive form of language, though we never fully cracked their communication system. But we also watched the population decline. In 2003, the estimate was 150-200 individuals. By 2010, it had dropped to 130-160. By 2020, we estimated fewer than 100 remained. Habitat loss, climate change, and, yes, continued hunting by people who didn't know what they were shooting all took their toll. The program did what it could. We worked with the Forest Service to quietly expand protected areas. We established a network of rangers and researchers who monitored known populations and intervened when necessary. We even successfully relocated 3 family groups when logging operations threatened their territories. But it wasn't enough. The secrecy that was supposed to protect them was also preventing the kind of large-scale conservation efforts they needed. Without public awareness, we couldn't secure proper funding. Without legal recognition, we couldn't prosecute hunters who killed them. We were trying to save a species while pretending it didn't exist. In 2019, something happened that shook me to my core. A family group we'd been monitoring for 15 years in the Olympic National Forest, a group I'd personally observed dozens of times, disappeared. All 5 individuals, including 2 juveniles, simply vanished. We searched for months, but found no trace. No bodies, no evidence of what happened. They were just gone. The most likely explanation, according to our team, was that they'd been killed and the bodies hidden or disposed of. Perhaps by hunters who realized what they'd done and panicked. Perhaps by someone who knew exactly what they were killing and wanted to hide the evidence. That's when I started questioning whether the policy of secrecy was really serving the creature's best interests. We were watching them go extinct in slow motion, and our hands were tied by classification protocols and non-disclosure agreements. When I retired in 2022, I asked Dr. McCarthy, who was still running the program at age 79, what would happen when the species finally went extinct. "We'll document it," she said simply. "We'll preserve the genetic samples, the research data, the photographic evidence. Future generations will know they existed, even if they're gone." "That's not good enough," I said. "Ellen, we've spent 50 years hiding them. Maybe it's time to try something different before it's too late." "The policy comes from the highest levels, Malcolm. I can't change it even if I wanted to." "Then maybe someone needs to break the policy." She looked at me sharply. "Malcolm, don't even think about it. You signed an NDA. The penalties for disclosure are severe. Criminal charges, loss of pension, possibly even imprisonment. Don't throw away everything you've built." But I couldn't let it go. For the next 3 years, living in my small coastal house, I thought about those creatures we'd studied. I thought about the body we'd pulled from the ocean in 2003, how it had drowned trying to stay afloat in an environment it wasn't built for. I thought about how its species was drowning too, slowly, while we documented their extinction. In January 2025, I made a decision. I started writing this account, documenting everything I knew about the discovery and the classified program. I gathered the few photographs and documents I'd kept from before signing the NDA, the images from that first day on the platform, the initial measurements, the observations before the government took over. I contacted journalists, cryptozoologists, and conservation groups, explaining that I had information about Bigfoot that the world needed to hear. Most ignored me or dismissed me as another crazy old man with Bigfoot stories. But a few listened. I'm writing this now knowing full well what the consequences will be. The federal government will likely come after me. I'll face legal action for breaking my NDA. I might lose my pension. At my age, I might even face prison time. But here's what I know. There are fewer than 100 of these creatures left. Maybe fewer than 80. In another decade, possibly 2, they'll be extinct. And when they're gone, a government program will quietly close, files will be sealed, and genetic samples will sit in freezers while the world remains ignorant that we shared this continent with another intelligent species. That's not acceptable to me anymore. So I'm telling the story. I'm providing evidence. The photographs, the measurements, the DNA analysis results I kept copies of, the documentation of that body we pulled from the Pacific Ocean in October 2003. I'm breaking my silence because saving a species is more important than protecting a secret. Will it trigger the hunting frenzy that McCarthy warned about? Possibly. But here's the thing. They're being hunted anyway. They're being shot by people who think they're bears or who fire in panic at something they don't understand. The difference is that without public acknowledgement, those deaths go unrecorded, uninvestigated, unpunished. If these creatures are going to go extinct, and they might regardless of what we do, then at least let them go extinct as a recognized species, with the world knowing what we lost. Let their extinction be mourned, studied, documented as a failure of conservation, not hidden away as a classified secret. And maybe, just maybe, public awareness will generate the pressure needed for real protection. Maybe someone will figure out what we couldn't, how to save them while they can still be saved. I know I'm old. I know I might not live to see the outcome of breaking this silence, but I'm at peace with my decision. I spent 22 years following protocols, respecting classifications, keeping secrets in the name of protection. And in those 22 years, the species declined by nearly half. It's time to try something different. The body we pulled from the ocean that day in 2003 was 7 feet 2 inches tall, weighed 520 pounds, and had lived for approximately 40 to 50 years based on our analysis. It had survived being shot in the head decades earlier. It had lived through harsh winters, found food in challenging environments, and adapted to human encroachment on its territory. It died because it ventured too close to civilization, eaten garbage that made it sick, and got caught in a storm that pulled it into an ocean it couldn't survive in. That death was tragic but natural in some sense, a consequence of habitat overlap and bad weather. But the slow extinction of its entire species through human hunting, habitat loss, and indifference, that's not natural. That's a choice we're making. I'm choosing differently now. I'm choosing to tell the truth, face the consequences, and hope that sunlight is a better disinfectant than secrecy ever was. To the federal agents who will undoubtedly come calling after this goes public. I'm at 2847 Ocean View Drive, Cannon Beach, Oregon. I'm not hiding. I'm not running. I'm ready to face whatever charges you bring. To the scientists who will analyze this information, the DNA samples are in Freezer C7 at the North Cascades Research Station. The skeletal remains are in Storage Unit 4. The photographic archive is in the digital database under classification code Echo Sierra Romeo 23. You'll know what to do with it. To the conservation groups who might finally get the funding and authority to protect these creatures, there's a family group of 4 in the Gifford-Pinchot National Forest, last observed near Mount Adams in November 2024. There's a pair in the Olympic National Forest near Lake Quinault. There's a lone individual in the North Cascades near Cascade Pass. They need protection now, not after they're gone. And to the hunters who might read this and think about going after these creatures, they're not trophies, they're not monsters. They're intelligent beings with families, emotions, and the capacity to suffer. If you encounter one, please, just let it go. Leave it alone. Let it live what little time its species has left in peace. I don't know if this revelation will save them or doom them. I don't know if I'm a hero or a fool for breaking my silence. But I know I couldn't go to my grave carrying this secret, watching a species disappear while the world remained ignorant of what we were losing. That body we pulled from the Pacific Ocean 22 years ago changed my life. It gave me purpose, showed me wonders I never imagined, and burdened me with a secret I finally decided I can't keep anymore. Maybe it's too late. Maybe they're already doomed. But at least now, if they disappear, the world will know what we lost. And maybe that knowledge will mean something to someone. Maybe it will change how we think about the wild places we're destroying, the species we're pushing to extinction, the creatures we share this planet with. That's my hope anyway. Dr. Malcolm Sterling, marine biologist, retired, Cannon Beach, Oregon, February 2025. Some truths are too important to die in silence. Some species deserve to be known, even if we failed to save them. I broke my oath, not out of malice, but out of love for creatures that deserved better than what we gave them. If there are consequences for telling their story, I'll face them. But their story deserves to be told.